Today, you'll be creating your own version of the silly pumpkin face. Let's get started. To begin, you will open this document in Photoshop, and we're going to make sure our workspace is set up correctly. My workspace is set to Essentials. If yours is not, just go up to Window, Workspace, and you can reset Essentials if you need to. From here, we'll start with number 1. Click on the Move tool. Make sure the Show Transform control box is checked in the menu bar. So locate the Move tool at the top of your toolbar, and with that clicked, go to the menu bar and make sure Show Transform Controls is checked. If yours is off, go ahead and click it. Number 2, unlock the background layer on the Layers panel by clicking on the lock icon. So go to the Layers panel, and if you don't see yours, then you need to go to Window and check Layers, but if your workspace has been set to Essentials, we should have that open already. Where it says Background Layer here, you're going to click the little lock icon. Number 3, choose the selection tool to select, copy, and paste a body part from each section on the left. So here you'll see your objects to choose from. You've got your eyes or sunglasses, mouth, nose, ear, hat, and hair for your pumpkin. Number 4, move the body part into position on the pumpkin to make a face. A couple of tips. Use your keyboard shortcuts for copy, paste, and move to work quickly. Later on, you're going to need to know how to flip an image, and you'll do that by going up to Edit, Transform, and Flip Horizontal. We're going to work left to right from each box so that we can get the face on the pumpkin. I am going to use the eyes here. If you prefer to do sunglasses, that's perfectly fine, but I'm going to show you how to get started. So with layer 0 selected, and each time you make a selection, you'll need to make sure that you have that layer selected in your Layers panel. So I'm going to choose a selection tool so that I can make a selection pretty simply. Normally I could use the object selection tool to make a selection, but because there are so many objects within this rectangle, it would be really difficult for the computer to make that selection using the object selection tool. So it's not appropriate here. I'm going to switch to my quick selection tool. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit by holding down Command and the plus sign on my keyboard. If you're on Windows, that'll be Control and the plus sign. And I can make my tool a bit bigger by clicking on the right bracket key on my keyboard to make and increase the size. Or I could go up to the top here and use my slider to decrease or increase the size of my brush to make that selection. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pick an eyeball here. I think I'm going to use this one. And I just want to click and drag over until I get all of the selection that I want. And as you notice, the computer will try to hone in on the parts that you're trying to select by grabbing the colors that are close to it. So your lines should be going on the outside of the eyeball. If you need to select more of the selection, just click and hold it, more like you're painting than just clicking. So if yours looks like this, that's fine. If you've made too much of a selection, you can hold down Command and the letter D, like deselect, or Control and the letter D to deselect, and start over fresh. Okay, so I'm just going to reselect and get kind of close, and starting from the inside, and just want those dotted lines to be running to the outside of the eyeball. If you start from the outside, what tends to happen is that you get too much because this tool works on color. So if you click on the white part, it's going to try to grab everything white first. So Command D to deselect, and I'm going to work from the inside and have it grab everything going towards the outside. Okay, so now that I have that selection completed, it looks the way that I want. I'm on layer 0, make sure that layer has been selected. I'm going to zoom out a little bit, Command and minus. And I'm going to copy and paste this. So briefly, just to get started, I'm going to walk you through a couple of ways to copy and paste. As you get the hang of this, you can work a lot faster. So on my keyboard, I can hold down Command or Control if you're on Windows, and press the letter C, like Charles, for copy. And then if I press Command or Control and the letter V like Victor, it will paste for me. And I see here that it's made a copy because now I have layer 1 here. And if I turn off the visibility of layer 0, I see I have just an eyeball that's on layer 1. I'm going to undo that by doing Command and the letter Z to undo or go back. Another way to do this would be by going up to Edit, and I could go Copy, and we can see the keyboard shortcuts. And then I could go Edit again and go to Paste, or the keyboard shortcut again. And I see that now that is on layer 1. So there's more than one way to do it, but your keyboard shortcuts will be the fastest way for you to do it. So learn those. So now that I have that layer selected, I need to use my Move tool. And if you have your Show Transform control box, you'll see that you have your eyeball selected on layer 1. If I turn that off, then you'll notice that you don't see the selection, but it's still there. So I'm going to go ahead and use my Move tool to drag a copy of the eyeball out. I'm going to move this over a little bit. Now, if I have Show Transform control box checked, I can increase or decrease the size of that eyeball with that selection. So that's very helpful. Once I'm happy with the position of the eyeball, I can click the check mark. Then I can go to my Layers panel, and I can call this one Left Eye. As you work more and more in Photoshop, having your layers labeled is very helpful to find things quickly. Now, here's a trick. Because you already have the eyeball copied and pasted, the computer remembers that you've already pasted one. So instead of having to go and make another selection and copy and pasting again, we can skip those steps and just paste another copy by holding Command and pressing the letter V like Victor on your keyboard and bringing up another copy of the eyeball. Now you can make that size the way that you want, bigger or smaller. And if you notice the pink lines, it's trying to line up the object to the other object that's already there. So I've got another copy of the eyeball, and I can always move those later. And I see that I've got another layer here, and I can call that one Right Eye. Okay, so we're going to continue this process by selecting, copying and pasting, and moving the body parts. Okay, I'm going to work with the mouth next. I need to make sure that I'm back on layer 0 because that's where all of the body parts are. If you ever get into a situation where you're making a selection and it's not grabbing onto the pixels in the image, you're probably on the wrong layer, so double check that. So I'm going to use my quick selection tool again and give him a mouth. All right. I think I'm going to do the blue ones here. Okay. So I'm just going to select on the inside and try to get those dotted lines to go to the outside. In the event that you select a little bit too much, again, Command and the letter D to deselect. Or if you just grab a little bit too much, you can switch your brush to the minus sign. Or if you hold Option on your keyboard, you'll see that your tool switches from that plus sign that's in the middle to a minus sign. So I'm just going to hold Option and zoom out a little bit, Command minus, make my brush a little smaller with my left bracket key, and hold Option, and I can drag back to where I want it to try to grab. Once I'm satisfied with that selection, I'm going to copy, paste, and move. Again, copy and paste, Command, and the letter C like copy, and Command and the letter V like Victor to paste. Again, if you're on Windows, that will be Control. Okay, so I've got another layer here. I'm going to call that one Mouth. Switch to my Move tool. Zoom out a bit. And I'm going to drag a copy over and position the mouth. Now, if you want the mouth to be a little funky, you can do that. Or if you want to turn it, just bring your mouse outside of the box and you'll see that you get the double arrow to appear. and it's got a little curve to it. If you click now on the outside, then you'll be able to rotate the mouth the way that you want it. Okay, so again, just move it by grabbing the mouth. If you need to turn it before you click on anything, bring your mouse outside of the selection, get that little curve to pop up, then left click and hold it with your mouse, and then you can rotate it. Okay, and then to increase or decrease size, just grab the handlebars. All right, that looks interesting, so we'll go ahead and accept that. I'm going to zoom out a bit here. All right, so now I'm going to give the pumpkin a nose. So on layer 0 here, because that's where the nose is located, it is not on these other layers. The only thing that are on those layers are what you have copied and pasted. So going back to layer 0, switching back to my quick selection tool, I'm going to choose a nose. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. All right, we're going to go with this one. So I'm just going to left click inside with my selection tool. It's made a nice selection here. I'm satisfied with that. And I'm going to copy and paste. Okay, I can go ahead and call this one nose and switch to my move tool so that I can move it. So just remember that each tool has its own job. So you can copy and paste with a quick selection tool selected, but to move it, you have to switch to your move tool. All right, so I'm going to give them a little bit of a nose. And I think I like the way that looks, and click the check mark. All right, it's coming together. So here I'm back on layer 0. I'm going to switch to my quick selection tool and grab the ear. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I'm set to that plus sign. And I'm just going to work from the inside out. So I'm just going to left click and then just kind of drag closer to the outside. And I see that my selection looks pretty good. Now I'm ready to, you guessed it, copy and paste. So again, you can use your keyboard shortcut to do that, or go up to Edit, Copy, Edit, Paste. Command minus, and I'm going to call this one left ear. Switch to my move tool and grab a copy here. All right, so I've got one ear here, and I'm not worried too much right now that it doesn't look like the ear is on the side of the face. I will show you how to fix that at the end. So go ahead and just position it for now. And click the check mark. That looks good. So just like the eyes, if you did a copy of the eye, this ear is already loaded on my paste board. So all I have to do is paste another copy. So I could go up to Edit and Paste, or I could use my keyboard shortcut and paste a copy. Command and the letter V like Victor. So here's where that tip on how to flip an image comes in handy. Because if you're trying to rotate it, you can do that, but it will be upside down. You literally need to flip this in some way. So I'm going to go up to Edit, Transform, and I want to flip this one horizontal. Now it's flipped the right way, and I can position that where I want it. Right there looks okay for now. All right, so just get it up to the side of the head, and we will work with it later. Okay, ready to work with the hat. Back on layer 0. Switch to my quick selection tool, and I'm going to pick a hat here. I'm going to go with the top hat. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, start on the inside, and just click and drag, and let the computer do the guessing. Now I'm going to copy and paste. I'm going to use my keyboard this time. Command or Control C, Command and the letter V like Victor. Paste, double click on the word and type hat. Switch to my move tool, and I'm going to zoom out a little bit, Command or Control minus. Now I can click and drag, and he's got a teeny tiny little hat. So I'm going to go ahead and expand that and make it a bit bigger. All right, and it'll come into focus when I click the check mark. Now I'm going to pick some hair for this pumpkin. Use my quick selection tool, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Using my selection tool, I'm going to click on the inside again and just kind of drag over, working from the inside out. And just grab the hair and grab the hair. Okay, if I grab too much, as we can see the dotted line has gone on the outside, I can do Command and the letter Z to go back before that happened. That's undo. And try to make a closer selection. That's looking pretty good. This one can get a little bit tricky. So I could use a different tool to make the selection so that I get all of the hair. I think this is looking pretty good. I'm just going to clean it up a little bit. So I'd rather have a little bit too much selected and clean up a bit of the white parts after I copy and paste the selection. So if yours looks like this, you've got a little bit of the white area selected, that is okay for this. We're going to go ahead and move forward. If you picked a different hair and it's working fine for you, by all means continue. And here we're going to do copy and paste. Again, Command C, Command V like Victor, and paste. I'm going to call it hair on my layers panel. Switch to my move tool and zoom out a bit. All right, so now I've got his hair. And if I stretch it a little bit, then I can position the hair the way that I want it. And if I need to adjust the hat, then I can do that. Now, if you're in a situation where your hair, you've gone in a different order and your hair is on top of your hat, you'll just need to reorder your layers in the layers panel. So with the hat, if it came in and my hair was on top and my hat's behind, all I have to do is reorder it by clicking on the gray area, just holding it, left click and holding it, and dragging it to the position that I want it. When I see that blue line is below the hat layer, if I let it go, now it reorders my layer to have the hat on top and the hair underneath. So you can always reorder your layers on the layers panel. Now to clean up this hair, I'm going to use the eraser tool. With the hair layer selected, I'm going to adjust the size of my brush, and then I'm just going to come in and clean up the hair. I could also use my magic wand tool, which is the selection tool that also works on color. So if I left click and hold it and switch to magic wand, if I click on the white part, it should just try to grab what is white. So if I press delete on my keyboard, now I can also clean up the little white pieces of the hair that I don't want. Okay, so I can zoom in to get a closer selection or bigger area to work with if I need to. Okay. All right, so he's looking kind of crazy right now. And that's because, again, the ears are sticking out on the outside of this. So what we need to do is make a copy of the pumpkin. Okay, so back on layer 0, we've got the pumpkin. And what I can do so that these other layers aren't getting in my way, I can click them off by clicking on the eyeball next to each layer, which turns off the visibility of that layer. Now I'm just seeing layer 0. Okay, so with layer 0 selected, I'm going to use my quick selection tool, and I'm just going to make a copy of the pumpkin. So go ahead and select it, click on the inside, then drag towards the outside. When I've got a little outline going around the pumpkin, the same way we've done all the other layers, we're going to copy and paste a copy of the pumpkin. So Command C, Command V, paste, and I'll call this one pumpkin. Okay, now that I have my pumpkin layer copied, I'm going to need to bring that layer up above the ears. So I'm going to go ahead and turn back on the visibility of the other layers so that you can see what's happening in real time. So with my pumpkin layer that I just made the copy, I just want to bring that up above the ears, the left and the right ear. And I notice I did not label right ear. So we're going to label right ear really quickly. And now we can see because the pumpkin layer is on top of the left and right ear, it makes it look like the ears are behind the pumpkin. So it's an illusion. But I also see that the hat and the hair have now disappeared behind the pumpkin, but we can fix that very quickly. So if you have the same problem, we just need to make sure that the hat and the hair is also above the pumpkin layer. So I'm just going to drag them up. So I'm select the hat and just click and drag in the gray area. And I want that to go above my pumpkin layer. And I'm going to pull this up a little bit so you can see a little bit better, just grabbing that bar in between. And I'm going to left click again and drag my hair layer up above the pumpkin, but below the hat, so it's underneath. This point forward, I just make a little adjustments that I need to make. And I can make the hat bigger or smaller, or if I decided, yeah, that hat's not working, then I could change the hat to a different one or change the face. Okay, so that is it. My pumpkin now has a silly face. And I hope yours does too. And if this is your first time doing Photoshop or you're just getting started, give yourself a pat on the back. You did it. Be proud of yourself. Turn your document into your teacher the way they have requested.